Ladies and gentlemen, Kirk Thatcher and Darren Doctorman, the Weirded Beardos. There's no guest to save us this week. It's just us.
Pure Beardo.
Pure Beardo all the time. Welcome to another episode of the Weirded Beardos. Across from me is Kirk Thatcher.
Hello, friends. I apologize in advance.
And who's across from you, Kirk?
Oh, well, there's... Oh, you meant... Oh, right. And across from me is Darren Dochterman. Is it Doctorman? Why is there CH? Darren Dochterman.
Because it's Dutch.
Dutch!
Les Dilly, my boss for many years, used to call me Deutschmark.
Oh, nice. I call you Dr. Darrenman because it makes
Sure, because that's what everyone else in fifth grade called me.
Yeah, well, why screw with success?
This week's episode, Screwing with Success.
We're both good at that. Well, here we are, a month away from the election to date this episode. Chaos reigns.
Yeah, so when we release this, we're 2 weeks away from the...
oh my gosh. Well, thank God for Marjorie Taylor Greene, who explained that we're controlling the weather.
Well, we are.
The government controls the weather. I love that. The government.
Through UFO technology.
Oh, now you're getting to a subject near and dear to my pancreas. I love UFOs. Are you a fan of UFO lore?
A fan? I've been exposed to it since I was a kid. My dad saw a UFO in 1959.
Oh wow, that was one of the big Wasn't that one of the big year of the UFO flaps? It was just like UFOs everywhere. No,
you're using the correct term, flaps. That's what they called them. That was during the first bunch of them.
It's not the only thing it's called flaps.
The guy who coined the term flying saucer was a pilot, I believe, and he saw it. For the life of me, I can't remember his name right now.
It was on the West Coast here. It was near Seattle.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he said they looked like flying saucers.
Yeah. But my dad was heavily into it. He had all the books. He had Incident at Exeter. He had UFOs Are Real. He had a ton of books because he was fascinated with the subject, and that rubbed off on me a little bit. And because of that, my dad produced a show with J. Allen Hynek in 1984.
What? Yeah. Not Blue Book.
The same. No. It was a live interview show.
But for radio, I'm assuming.
No, for television.
Oh wow!
Local Chicagoland.
And so they would interview like witnesses and things, and Allen Hynek was his co-host, or he was just.
Allen Hynek was basically the co-host, and we had a local broadcast professional who used to be one of his students. She was hosting, and we had a bunch of scientists as guests, and they would talk about the question of UFOs and whether they were asking the correct questions, and talking about SETI and all these other questions that had been raised around the UFO phenomenon. SETI, they search for extraterrestrial intelligence, which Dr. Hynek actually believed to be rather silly because of the speed of light. You're hearing messages from the long past dead, and they were sending out messages to the not yet born. So it didn't make much sense to him unless there was some loophole in physics that would allow that to happen.
They've now proven faster than light travel because of at least from electrons or something. They've just, I read all the new kind of cutting edge science stuff. They've done it. Non-locality has been proven. Again, I don't remember the experiment, but again, it's all with like electron spin and stuff. It's not like they send a mouse across the planet, but it is getting interesting. And I grew up, no one in my family cared about UFOs. And it wasn't like they dismissed it. I think my mom helped nurture my interest in anything science. I was a huge science nerd. So UFOs to me just seemed like, well, that makes sense. Also, because of my ADHD, Asperger's spectrum, I felt like an alien. I literally, when I was a kid,
Did you say Mossburgers?
Asperger's, my
Oh,
Asperger's.
Osbergers. Yes, yes.
Well, I
Because
ate burgers
Walt
made of
Mossberg is a reporter for a newspaper.
Walt Mossberg. Yeah.
Yes.
No, so I felt like and I knowing I was adopted, which I knew since I was day one, or could understand the concept. I
Right.
thought I'm an alien experiment. I think my mother was human. Obviously, that's provable. But I think that I was probably some, half human, half alien hybrid because I didn't really get. I just felt like the other, which now you realize spectrum people always, and even
Everyone, yeah.
yeah, everyone feels
Everyone to
like
some
the other.
extent feels
But
that.
when you're adopted, there's actually like biological,
Sure.
hard reason, just down to things like scent and that we can't even, so we can only
Right.
process subconsciously.
Subliminal.
Yes. So because of that, and because of my love of science and then science fiction, I loved anything to do with UFOs, and so it's always been a deep interest of mine. And what's funny, I find, is I'm pretty open about it. I'll talk to anybody, and some people get really angry. It's like talking about Building 7 with 9/11. You bring it up, and some people are
Yeah.
like, "That's absurd! Like, how dare you! Like, this is complete non." And they just get so angry about it. I'm like, well, it's just to me, that's what science is: curiosity. Like, well, why did that? Seems weird. That's anomalous that that building collapsed. Same thing with UFOs. There's so much at this point, not even anecdotal evidence, with all the stuff that's come out from the Navy with the Tic Tac videos and other
Yeah.
stuff. It's like there's actually a YouTube channel, these two goobers out of Hawaii, called Third Phase of Moon, without even the article, the Third
Third
Phase of
phase
Moon.
up moon.
Yeah. And it's these two brothers or cousins. I think they're now like twin brothers. And they talk like this: "Hey, everybody." But they do they're a collection house. They're like the Utney Reader of UFO videos around the planet.
Yeah.
And they get stuff from obviously hoaxes to real interesting, and they're beyond lights in the sky now. I mean, that stuff, someone goes, "I saw a light in the sky." I'm like, yeah, okay. Now it's literally like videos of craft, doing weird stuff, anomalous glowing things. And so I love that as just mild entertainment. But to me, where there's smoke, there's fire. There's beyond smoke now. There's like glowing embers and little fires here and there, and and people are like, well, if they were real, the government, the government can't hide anything. Did you see Oppenheimer? Like, the government's really good at hiding things, mainly
Yeah.
by obfuscation, where they call it beyond FUD. It's just uh, filling the void with fake stories to cover up
Right.
the real stories.
Right.
And that's been a proven CIA, NSA, whatever department you want to talk
The
about.
guy who saw the first UFO and coined the term flying saucer was Kenneth Arnold.
That's right, Kenneth Arnold. And so there's so much. The way they do it with anything is just, shoot a fire hose of bullshit
Right.
around the real story so that ultimately you just give up. Like, I don't know what's real anymore. But
Yeah.
there's enough stuff and enough people. Richard Dolan, Dolan, he's
Mm-hmm.
got a YouTube channel. He's very interesting. He's very professorial. He's not like, UFOs are real. I saw one in my backyard. I don't know if he's actually ever seen anything, but he's very, very scientific about his research. And there's just a number of books that have come out in the last 20 years about, people uh, coming out of the woodwork from various government entities who do it either anonymously or on the deathbed kind of thing. You say, oh yeah, no, we have craft. I mean, from Bob Lazar, who I've followed since he
Mm-hmm.
came out in the 80s, to Stephen Greer, who's an odd duck. He's a ER guy. If you guys don't know who Stephen Greer is, Greer, he's all over the web. If you Google that name, he's the one that got a government. He got like 50 or 100 people, most of them ex-government employees, and government, including the military, not just NSA, CIA, FBI, to come forward and give depositions saying, no, this is real. I was involved in, crashes or tracking UFOs, or I was a military pilot and we saw them all the time. And they had this government panel and the government went, okay, thank you. They did it in front of Congress. And this was in the 90s, late 90s.
Yeah.
And he put a book out of it. And it kind of was like the best way to handle this is just not handle it. The government just said, okay, great, thank you.
Right.
We've heard you. That's very interesting. And these
Thanks.
are people who are signing. Yeah, thank you. And so that was another successful
There
way of.
was also a group that was successful in getting a bunch of classified documents released through
Yeah,
the
the
Freedom of
FOIA.
Information
Yeah.
Act. But when they came out, they were almost all redacted. There was
Yeah,
all black pages of marker
right.
eradication.
Again, when people say, "Well, if they were real, the government would," it's like, why do you think it's all blacked out?
Yeah.
So yeah, here's the paper, but this is all reasons of national security. So that's the question now. The reason, and there's this new guy. I can't remember his name. He's a British guy, and he's doing these amazing interviews. Not only with like Lou Elizondo, who's kind of all over the news. If you're again into
Not to be confused with Lyle Alzado.
no, Lou Elizondo, LUE goes by Elizondo, who worked in the government at ATIP, the aerial. What was it? I forget what it was. AATIP, but it was a branch of. He worked in the Pentagon.
Yeah.
So a branch of the military, I guess. And he's come forward and said, and there's so much noise about it now that my hunches as a kid was like, this has to be real. Like, why would it not be? It's more, to quote a phrase, illogical that
Right.
there aren't other planets or other civilizations and species in the universe.
Well, that's the thing. That's the leap of logic that some people take to assume that these are from other planets or other thing.
There's dimensional.
Because the question of UFOs is one question, and then the question of what they are is another question, and that's what impressed me about Dr. Hynek when I met him. He had a very specific way of talking about this to separate those two questions. Do UFOs exist? Yes.
It's a
Do we
phenomenon.
know what they are? We do not. Can we extrapolate from that who is piloting them, who is behind them? No, we cannot.
Right. Well, you can theorize. Yeah.
You can theorize, yeah, but from the evidence, and there has been evidence, you can prove that they do exist. There is some phenomenon going on that people are seeing, but that's where it breaks down, and then the quote crazies come out and fill in the blanks.
Well, calling them crazies
Well,
again,
some
you're
of them
falling
are.
into the CIA's. There are crazy people.
Oh yeah,
There's
yeah, yeah.
crazy people. There's crazy people in the shoe business, but
There's crazy people in this podcast.
what?
What?
Yeah, I know, but we
You
tolerate.
only assume that it's you.
I know you're crazy. I've seen your handwriting. But what's interesting about all of that is that the theories on what's piloting them or what they are. So let's remove what the UFO is, whether
Yeah.
it's, but it seems to be some sort of craft. I think there's a phenomenon, and not all of it is craft. Some of it's just an energy thing. But then it goes down to who's piloting or who's controlling or what. And then you get into the real interesting stuff. There's the reptilians, there's the grays. The grays seem to be the most talked about, at least in the last, since Whitley Strieber. Yeah. But then there's the dimensional beings and the time travelers, which is also interesting.
Right.
The other theory, which I thought of as a kid, which, it's not particularly original, but I was like, wow, what if they're us from the future trying to save the species because, we all drank too much, PCBs.
But obviously, if they are from the future, then the species was saved.
Right, but maybe they're getting, it's like 12 monkeys. Like, we have to get the thing to not, the species is dying out, and so we need the DNA. I mean, that was, Linda Moulton Howe is another great of her. Yeah. She's got a channel, a YouTube channel, which you've not watched and you're interested in UFOs. There's a backlog of like 8 years of it, I think now, called Earth Files.
Yeah.
She's great. She's your sweet aunt who, drinks.
I used to listen to her on Art Bell all the time.
Loved Art Bell.
And,
Coast to Coast.
Honestly, when Linda Moulton Howe would show up, that was my cue to go to sleep because her lists of stuff was so soporific. Yes. That's a good word.
She also has that very calming, sweet aunt.
Yeah.
But her YouTube channel is a little more interesting. But it is a good thing to make yourself go to sleep too. But then, I mean, that's where if you're at all interested in the subject, watch Earth Files. She covers. I mean, she literally talked to anybody, sort of like Art Bell. Yeah. Art Bell would let anyone on who has, the guy who invented a time machine and all
Yeah.
that stuff. But then you get into the Black Pyramids, the one in Alaska and the one in the
Yeah.
Antarctic, and the lizard people, and what's the ranch out in Texas? I think it's Texas, Arizona, the Skinwalker Ranch, all
Right.
that
Right.
craziness. And then there's guys who worked in the
I'm
middle.
Luke Skinwalker. I'm here to rescue you.
That's the X-rated version. Star Wars. There's the guy in the military who's, I think he's written a book. I know he's done lots of interviews about saying he worked out in White Sands in some weird testing range where he was alone most of the time, and he befriended and was contacted by a group of the tall whites, they call them. If you
Right.
get into this, there's probably 20 different types of more commonly occurring alien species. And one of them is the tall whites or the Nordics. And so he had this entire relationship where they would just land and communicate with him and talk to him. And so again, he's an amazing, crazy storyteller.
Yeah.
Again, he doesn't have any proof. I mean, the proof is he did work at this Air Force base or this military.
What he said that he did, yes. And
well, I think he's proven that with
not to be confused with Major Ed Dames, who was working with the remote viewing.
Oh, well, that's yes. That's what I love. Is in the article is like there are colonies on Mars, and like, how do you know? Well, the remote viewer saw. I'm like, okay, yeah. remote viewing has been proved to be effective sometimes.
Yeah,
sometimes these guys get 100% hits. So it's fascinating. And I mean, then you open it up to, which is what happens if you're in any of the different ESP.
It branches off into everything. Yeah.
Well, and that's what kind of pisses me off about mainstream science, the lamestream science, is that anything that's curious that can't be proven right now is falderall and you're crazy and the whole thing is it can't be proven, then it must not be true. Well, you can't prove a lot of things that are considered mainstream science now.
Yeah,
there are good theories. There are theories that have not been broken, but to prove it 100%, like electrons. I mean, we know electricity, we know the after effects and the symptoms, but to prove what it is, they're still not there. And any good scientist will say, yeah, we know, we're scratching the surface of what is real. But then when you get into like quantum physics, and then it turns out nothing is real.
Yeah,
it's
nothing
all
unreal exists.
Wow, wasn't that T. Plana Hoth, the matron of Vulcan philosophy?
I believe it was.
Who wrote that?
Kiri Tin Ha.
Kiri Tin Ha, that's right. Yes, T. Plana Hoth, the planet Hoth with one letter changed, and people are like, I put that out on Twitter a year or two ago, saying, "Hey, here's an Easter egg in Star Trek that was a Star Wars thing," and like two people were like, "Yeah, I knew that. I totally called it. I was saying that to everybody back then." Like, no, you weren't.
No, you weren't.
Jerk. I mean, they might have figured it out at some point, but yeah. Anyway, back to UFOs.
Yes.
I think we're on the cusp of stuff coming out. And
we've been on the cusp of stuff coming out for 20 years.
No, I know. But there are, again, the guy, I wish I remembered his name. He does a great interview show. And there are people who are, and maybe that's just the carrot they keep using. It's like, we're gonna go release information.
Yeah.
But I do believe that something's gonna break just because the information is so easily available. Now, information about politics is, Marjorie Taylor Greene thinks that we control the weather or someone controls the weather. I don't know who she's blaming, our government or the Chinese government.
Well, and the weather wizard controls the weather.
But there are people there were entire government, experiments seeing if they can, seed clouds to bring rain. I mean, it's not madness to say, God, it would be great if we could make it rain or make it not rain. But she won't accept global warming, but it's because we control the weather. Yeah, we totally want to destroy North Carolina and Georgia because those guys are full of Republicans. So yeah, those are red states. Why would
they are.
We do that? I don't know. And then I'm not going to get into religion or politics that much, but there are people. I mean, the whole QAnon thing. I mean,
yeah.
And I don't know if that's because we can get into how science presents itself. The Neil deGrasse Tyson's like, we are smarter than you. And yes, in many cases, they are in one field, in their vertical knowledge of whatever it is. But I think scientists become priests of the religion of science.
Well, they become enamored with their own position, and
Yes,
sage telling
yes,
of
their
the
sagacity. Yes,
yeah of the story of science, and they become its minister,
well,
and
yeah. I mean, he
that's
Neil
very.
deGrasse. Oh, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say that that's very intoxicating to some people, and I think that's the case with Neil deGrasse Tyson,
And
honestly,
he's done great things, and he's made, he's like Carl Sagan. But Carl Sagan, I guess he was a student, or at least Sagan mentored him a bit, is what I've read.
or at least that's what he says, and that's
That's
fine.
what he says. But he definitely inherited the pomposity of like,
Absolutely.
I'm going to teach you. And it's great because he made it entertaining, like Sagan. But I wish he could lose the air of,
You stupid people. This is
yeah,
how it is.
stupid, stupid, stupid.
Stupid little
But
minds.
then you get who's the actor who has been out in Neil deGrasse Tyson and he's been on Joe Rogan. It'll come to me. He was in Iron Man. He was replaced by Don Cheadle. He replaced
Oh
Don
yeah, yeah,
Cheadle.
yeah. Uh, yes.
His little I'm sure everyone's listening is like, his name is.
Yeah.
Okay, hold on. I'm gonna Google that shit.
Yeah. It's funny. I was there when they said he wouldn't be coming back.
Don Cheadle.
No, no, the actor that we're trying to think about.
He wouldn't be coming back to Iron Man.
Yeah, because I was on Iron Man 2.
Oh, wait, that was Cheadle who got fired, and then wasn't he
No,
replaced?
no, it was the guy in
It was
Iron
the other
Man
way
1
around.
who
Oh,
got
okay.
fired. Yeah,
Oh, okay. Hold
yeah.
on.
I
Terrence Howard. Thank you.
Terrence Howard, right? And he has some interesting
Yeah, that he's come up with a
ideas.
new. Yeah, the 1+1. All right, 1 times 1 equals 2. I think was his whole thing. And it's like, and then he explains it, and he's been on Rogan, and with like a 3-hour thing where he's explaining it, and I love uh,
Uh-huh.
another Rogan guest
Yes.
who's a physicist.
Yes.
And I think he has a brother too. Hold on.
Lots of people have brothers.
Eric, not Weinstein. Hold on. But he's to me like a true scientist. Eric. Oh, hold on. Dang it.
While Kirk
Cut
searches
this
the
out.
internet for the
Yeah.
answer.
Sing the Jeopardy theme.
No, we would have to pay for that. We can't do that.
You can sing it, can't you? It's
No,
your
you cannot.
interpretation. Really?
You cannot. 7 notes and you're
So just go dun dun dun.
Ah, stop.
I just said dun dun
Stop
dun.
it.
4 notes.
Stop.
4 notes.
You have too many notes.
Too many notes. All right. I think it's. Is it
But,
one?
saying that we wouldn't talk about religion is one thing, but UFOs is a religion to some people.
Well, any kind of. Yeah.
Any kind of strong beliefs require faith and
Eric
faith.
Weinstein. It is Weinstein.
Okay.
I kept thinking I was conflating it with,
Uh-huh.
the guy who's now in jail.
Yeah.
Harvey.
The other Weinstein.
Eric
Harvey.
Weinstein. And I think he has a brother. Anyway, Eric Weinstein is amazing. And he's a scientist who hasn't lost his curiosity. He comes across as pompous because he's knowledgeable. But
Right.
if you listen to him, he isn't. And he's the one who said, I listen to Terrence Howard. And there's a lot of nonsense there. But he has some really interesting ideas.
Yeah.
And that to me is what science, any real scientist that I've ever spoken to, and
Right.
whether they're
You can't be closed off to any option.
right. Yeah, if you can't prove it wrong, you can't say it's untrue.
Yeah.
Nothing unreal exists. Oh wait, who wrote that? Wow, I was a clever lad.
The planet Hoth.
Does not exist. That's true. That is unreal. An Unreal Engine, you can render Planet Hoth. Anyway, what's great about UFOs in general is it is the curiosity of science expanded beyond the things we know and the things we know that we don't know, and the things that we don't know that we don't know.
You know?
But it also ties into science fiction and just curiosity and creativity.
Yeah.
Because all scientific theory starts as an idea, like, whoa, what if this is us from the future? What if this are dimensional beings and we're not actually traveling planets? They're maybe occupying Earth in one of the multiple dimensions. So that's what's great is it kind of
Maybe
blows your
they're
mind.
giant crystal creatures that travel dimensionally and hang out in ancient temples.
Yeah, could be that. I mean, that's what was great about sci-fi. It makes you go, "Wow, that's what a crazy idea."
Yeah.
Um, anyway, UFOs. If you are at all interested in stuff, look up some of the things we've talked about. Look up and to look at an interesting take on it because Eric Weinstein is a common guest on Joe Rogan, and also another shout out to a gentleman I've met, Tom Bilyeu, who has a great. Do you know? Have you watched his show?
I have not.
Oh my gosh, it's great. He has these deep dives with very smart, interesting people, and I don't always agree with him. He's had guys that are ex-CIA operatives who, basically think that America is under attack. I mean, whatever. They're very, I would say, conservative, and we need to have a stronger military, which to me seems insane. It'd be nice to have healthcare. Hold on, it's Tom Bilyeu. What is his show?
How's that spelled?
Really interestingly, impact.
With the EAUX at the
It's
end?
no, it's Bilyeu. It's probably French,
Oh,
but
Bill
he's
U.
American. Bilyeu. His show is Impact Theory,
Okay.
and great interviews, long 2.5 hours, sometimes 3 interviews with people like Eric Weinstein and financial people and kind of across the board, like Joe Rogan. He doesn't just say I'm only talking to liberals or I'm only
Yeah.
talking to conservatives.
Yeah.
And you get a lot of interesting viewpoints, and a lot of it's scary. A lot of it is like, look, you get a lot of clicks saying the world's going to end, or we're going to prepare for disaster.
Well, it is going to end. It's just a question of when.
Well, yes, thank you. You're going to die. That should be the
You're
name.
all going to die.
We should change this from Weird Beardos to "You're going to die," and shocking information.
Yeah.
But yeah, Tom Bilyeu, listeners, you want to listen to smart people talking, but tell them we sent you.
Right.
These two idiots sent us to Impact Theory. But he gets and talks to people like UFOs. I don't know if he said Stephen Greer on, but anyway, interesting guy,
Wonder
very
if
open
he's had
minded.
Judy Greer on. I don't know.
Wow, just sunk the energy right there. Just
No,
like a
no,
soft,
you
like
you
a
didn't
medicine
yes
ball.
and. You didn't yes and say
Yes, and
you're
Judy
the one who
Jetson.
killed it.
Judy Jetson from the future.
Yeah. Nice.
All right, so that's I don't know. I mean, I could talk about UFOs. I mean, the range of crazy stories. I don't know if they're true or not, but they're great stories. That's when people go, "Do you believe in UFOs?" I'm like, "Do I believe? Do you believe in atoms?" I mean, there's proof that there's something there, so
Yeah.
I believe there's something there. Am I wearing a tinfoil hat and trying to communicate with Mork from Mork? No,
No, because
but I
Mark doesn't
believe
want to
that
talk to you.
I believe that it's that like Area 51 probably has crashed UFOs or Wright Patterson over the
Like,
years. I think the government knows way more than they're letting on. And, the theory is always that it comes out as like, for reasons of national security, there'd be panic in the streets and churches would, explode and people be
dogs and cats living
together. Yeah, exactly. And I'm like, really? And then the theory is, and this has been talked about since Close Encounters, well, they're letting the media slowly roll out stories so they kind of, build up calluses in people's brains.
That's funny. I might have mentioned this before.
Mm.
At one of my frequent long dinners with Doug Trumbull, he
Yes.
asked me,
Oh,
did you ever talk to Robert Wise about the day the Earth stood still
yes.
and how he was helping the government prepare the public for the arrival of aliens?
Yes.
And I said, no, I haven't. But you worked on the movie that would arguably have been doing the same thing.
Right.
Close Encounters is supposed to, prepare everybody for the arrival of aliens. And he said, oh, I guess that's true.
Cool. Never thought of that.
Wait a minute.
You saw it as a job because he had to do the job. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the Robert Wise, I mean, that story's been around forever.
Yeah.
And, after you hear about Project Mockingbird, you're like, it's possible. I mean, that's the thing. Here's here's the old quote is like, keep an open mind, make sure your brains don't fall out. Curiosity is not belief.
Yeah.
And I think, at least in my point in my life, like I don't know what I believe anymore. I'm just open to I'm open to ideas. I mean, I believe I'll have a hamburger for lunch. That I can prove. After that, uh, and I think probably that inspire informs my political opinions.
Yeah.
I think people who have devout political opinions, just any uh, devoutist, what would you say, any beyond enthusiasm,
Devoted.
yeah, anyone who's devoted to a particular worldview usually becomes pedantic and inflexible. And I think
Right.
that is where a lot of our problems come from.
And then you start writing in pedantic pentameter.
But I'm
Um, I'm going to do a crazy transition here. Yeah.
Go
The
ahead. Let's.
the
I'll,
crickets love
I'll
it.
I'll judge you're crazy.
Okay. Well, one of Dr. Hynek's children
Mm.
is Joel Hynek, who was a visual effects supervisor and
No, man.
worked on the East Coast. I think at a few times with Doug Trumbull. Um, but that brings up old visual effects companies, and is
Yes.
one of them is the
Slick.
Robert Abel and Associates
You
that
slicked up.
was formed in 1974. And last night I was lucky to have been invited to a celebration of the 50th anniversary of Robert Abel and Associates, and went
Is it
to a.
still in business?
It is not. It
Yeah,
hasn't been in
they went out of
business for
business
many
in the
years.
'90s.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
Actually, in the 90s. Yeah,
because they
because
merged with Omnibus. Omnibus
right.
Able bought them, and then it imploded.
Yeah, yeah. And of course, Abel himself died in the mid 90s. Uh, but
A lot of people money.
through our friend Rose Degnan, I got invited through Bill George. He says, "Are you
Oh,
going to the Abel thing?" I said, "What Abel thing?" And so I got to go, and it was lovely. Saw a bunch of people there that both Kirk and I know. The lovely and talented Brooke Breton was there, and she says hi,
I
and
love
of course I saw Bill George and
Billy.
Lou Zudavern, who's a great
Oh God,
miniature
yes.
miniature builder and artist, and uh, who else was there? Uh, 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 let's see. Uh,
Was Richard Edlund there?
Richard Edlund was there. Yeah.
What about any of the? Well, Bill George, you said. What about like Lauren Peterson or?
Lauren was not there. John Knoll was there,
Ah,
and
ah, the
the
Giants.
Giants,
Ah, the
uh,
Giants.
and of course Richard Taylor, who was the art director for
He's
Abel.
Richard
Uh,
Taylor. No, that
no,
not the
not the New
not the New
Zealand
Zealand
Richard Taylor,
Richard Taylor. Jinx, you buy me a
but
Coke. Oh,
the
yes,
co-designer of the movie Enterprise, Richard Taylor.
yes.
Uh, and he was such a fun person to
What
hang out with.
was there a presentation or?
Sort of. A couple people got up and spoke, and it was very nice and hard to hear. And but it was great meeting a bunch of these people and seeing uh, basically the love that these people had for what they were doing at the time. And even though it was horrendous hours and tough going for everybody, they were forging uh, uh, new
Well,
techniques and new looks and
wasn't he originally just Bob Abel, and he was an animation company, like an effects house? He did those Seven Up commercials that
he
really
yes, well
on the
that's Robert Abel and Associates,
that
and
was
he
Associates.
yeah
Okay, I thought
uh,
it was earlier than '74, but
no, earlier he was a documentary filmmaker,
okay, I knew he had some. Okay,
and finally someone suggested, well, you ought to start getting into this area because it's a
he,
growth industry.
yeah, he was the one, or his company was the one that really, uh,
They invented backlit
right,
graphic animation.
animation in the '70s. So it was he became the go-to. He did the
Yeah,
Seven Up commercial
the Seven Up
and
commercial, the Butterfly,
the
which was the
butterfly.
first
Yeah,
one, and then the Bubbles one, which was another
yep.
one. And they talked about that, and how difficult it was to film the live action. They nearly lost all the footage that were
Yeah.
shot at that, and so they were able to. Con Pedersen, who worked on 2001, worked
Yeah.
for Able, and they were able to salvage basically 10 feet of footage and use that to create the commercial
Wow.
after losing all of their footage from the lab.
Well, back in those days, there were two big animation houses for that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Able, and then where this place, not Coast, where Phil Tippett and Dennis Muir, and they all worked at. I think it was
Right.
Coast Production.
They did
Stop
animation like
motion, yes.
the stop motion. Yeah, like
Pillsbury
the
Doughboy and
absolutely
Speedy, Alka-Seltzer, all
Speedy
that.
Alka-Seltzer and all
And so,
those.
yeah, that was stop motion. That was here in the Valley, I think, at Van
Yeah,
Nuys.
yeah.
Um, was there another name attached? Was it Coast, or was it something else before, and then it
It
became
was
Coast?
some guy's name
Yeah.
that
I never worked there, but Dennis Muir and Phil Tippett, a
yeah.
lot of the guys, Ken Ralston, all came
Yep.
from that, and that's why ILM was in Van Nuys, probably just down the street.
Right.
And then Robert Abel was more the 2D animation, and he
Right.
really got into computer animation early. And so
Absolutely. And
that was their
their
like their
their company with Richard Taylor art directing invented this sort of candy apple glow look where everything had a bit of a glow to it. It was backlit, so it looked like
very sexy.
it was lit, and it was amazing. And they created a new genre of commercial, and it was very slick and all done on animation stands and live
Yeah,
action
Oxberries.
photography, Oxbury stands. Um, and then later they did the Levi's commercial, which was a very surreal sort of half animation, half live action with walking pants going past and a floating Levi's logo. And they really were cutting edge in the commercial field.
Up into
And
the
of
90s.
course, they did the ABC Sunday Night Movie opening with the marquee with all the glowing stars
Right.
and
Yeah, they were the king. I mean, they were the place.
absolutely.
And then in the 80s, my touch with them was two things. Jim Henson hired them to do the owl at the beginning of Labyrinth.
Oh yeah.
That was, I believe, that was Omnibus.
That's when they were Omnibus. Yeah.
Omnibus Able. So a Canadian computer animation company merged or bought Robert Able, which was in fact, okay. We'll do the history part first.
Yeah.
They bought Robert Able, and then when everyone in Hollywood heard that Robert Able now had a new owner, the lawsuits and the bills that had gone unpaid for almost decades came out and bankrupted the entire company.
Yeah.
Because people had given up. I guess Robert Able, his accountants or whatever, were not.
He said, "We got nothing. We got nothing. Good luck."
Well, it's probably true. It was, like now, effects companies don't make a lot of money. But he owed so much money to everyone in Hollywood who had ever worked with him. So when Omnibus took over, not knowing this was not full disclosure, so I don't know if a lawsuit came out. Anyway, it all kind of went belly up.
They didn't do their due diligence.
Yeah. Well, I think everyone had given up. Like literally, there were bills from 20 years earlier.
Yeah.
So I know all this because at one point, they were talking about doing the Enterprise for. So they did the Owl for Labyrinth, which is when I was talking to them, and they did a digital version of the Enterprise for Next Gen. They looked at it. They tried doing it.
I think that was a different company.
No, I think it was Omnibus Able. Because I was visiting there.
I got a feeling that Paramount would never hire them again after the motion picture debacle.
Well, I don't know if Paramount. This could have been on their own dime to prove they could do it. Because I remember they were.
I remember seeing that test.
Yeah. So I knew all this because at one point on Star Trek IV, Ralph Winter had considered using other effects houses.
Sure.
And Omnibus Able was one of the big ones now that Omnibus had bought him, and then computer graphics were the hot thing. And so I met a gal whose name was BJ Rack, who was the wife or the at that point ex-wife, or they were divorcing, of uh, Jim Frawley, who directed the first Muppet movie.
Right.
And so I would go around with her. She was like a headhunter, a rainmaker for them,
Mm-hmm.
as the production designer or art director for commercials. And we'd go and pitch, and I would be fabulous and fun. And I was young, and I'd just come off Star Wars and Star Trek,
Yeah.
so the pedigree got us in the door, and we became really good friends. She's how I met Jim Henson. So we'd go out and have drinks afterwards, and we were pals. And I showed her some ideas I had for a show that was puppet creatures, more like Star Wars creatures than Muppet creatures. And I was well aware of Jim Henson's work because like 5 guys from Dark Crystal came and worked on Jedi. So we heard all about the Henson Creature Shop. So that is how I met Jim Henson. So Omnibus Able has a small part in me having my career with the Muppets and forward.
Their reach was huge because everyone who was anyone at one point worked for them.
Yeah.
Because they were, one of, maybe 3 companies in town. Trumbull was the other one. Trumbull was also doing commercials and TV, logos and things like that.
So we've talked about the small, like Coast was a smaller house.
Mm-hmm.
Robert Abel was bigger. What was the other one? Well, there was Gene
Warren.
Warren, yeah, and his dad.
Yeah, Gene Warren Sr.
Warren Sr.
They were Fantasy Effects.
Fantasy, that was it. I couldn't remember them. They were Fantasy. So it was funny, in LA there were like 5 or 6 houses. Like I said, Coast was more, and they had kind of their specialties. Fantasy was miniatures, big miniatures, ligatures. And so back in the day when I was a kid, like, oh, you're a model maker. Well, you'd want to go to Fantasy or, well, ILM had moved at that point.
Right.
Rick Price, that was another one.
Rick Price Movie Miniatures, yeah.
That was a miniature shop because I had friends who worked. Rick hired. That's what was great back then. We talked about this in the previous broadcast about mentoring. You could just go in and say, "Look, I'll sweep up, and I know how to mix plaster. I know how to, I can cut." I can cut model pieces off the sprue.
And like John Belushi in Animal House, sure, come on in.
Yeah, it really was like that. Hey, kid, you're dumb enough to want to work here, and we'll pay you minimum wage, and you can sweep the floors and make coffee and hang out. And that's how most of us, probably in our 50s and 60s now and older, got into the business. Mm-hmm. I mean, Ken Ralston, Phil Tippett, you were kind of a nerd that made movies at home, and then you found out there's places that would hire you, and you kind of earned while you learned. Yeah. And, I think probably the 80s was the last era of that. Now, maybe with computer graphics, there's some level, kids would like learn Lightwave or what was the Amiga computer? Well, no, I'm talking about early days.
Yeah. The Amiga was Lightwave. It was the video toaster.
Right, video toaster and Lightwave. And you could, make your own little short films, and you'd go to, I don't know, like the ILM. ILM was such a creme de la creme kind of thing that I think you had to have some level.
Well, certainly when they moved up north, they were.
Oh yeah, no, yeah. Well, not Jedi. No, they were taking model maker. Like there was a guy in the model shop who was a violin maker, but he knew how to make wooden bucks and things. And
I don't like all these violins on television.
But what about the sax? I mean, if you don't have a saxophone, how do you have a sexy soundtrack?
Well, sax and violins.
Hey, it's this kind of comedy you can expect every week on the whatever the hell we're called, on the Barded Wardos. Anyway, I think that, and that's an interesting question. Like the show I'm on, it's done in Unreal Engine and Maya. So kids today learn Maya at school. If you go to an animation school or something, you're pretty much taught Maya. Lightwave's sort of a hobbyist thing again.
Right. But also Blender.
Well,
Blender.
That's what I was going to say. Blender's amazing. I just downloaded the new version because I'm like, it's better. I mean, I was paying years of Maxon, the German.
Oh my God,
and it was like getting like $2,000 a year. But if you
Max on, Max off,
and it was great. But when you look at what Blender does now, Blender has dynamics and water.
Blender has everything. They have 2D animation. They have it's amazing.
If you can spend not a penny and have Blender and Unreal, and all you need to spend money on is your hardware. Most of it going to a good graphics card and memory, and you can do literally you see, I mean, you could do commercials, and that's what's happening is, the band from the ranch, the two guys in a garage, Days of Lightwave is coming back with Blender and Unreal.
Right.
In fact, the show I'm working on, which I'll do a little promo for, it launches October 30th. It's called Max and the Midnights. I think I've talked about it, but I can finally say that's what I worked on the last 2.5 years. It's all rendered in Unreal.
Mm-hmm.
We do layout and camera work all in Unreal, and then it's the
then
character.
You bring it over to
Maya. The
Maya.
character, yeah.
Character animation is done in Maya.
It's done in
and then
Maya.
It's brought back in.
Brought back in. Now, I think in 2 years, Unreal is working on this. They're I don't know why they just don't buy Maya or some version or Blender or something, or even, but so you can do the anime. You don't ever have to leave Unreal because the rendering
within.
The rendering and the particle physics and all that are
amazing,
astounding. And what you can do, I mean, you just go on YouTube now and see. You can learn how to use Unreal, but you can also see these short films now. The Star Wars ones or the Stormtroopers, most of them humorous, are amazing and hilarious. And with the mocap you can do on your iPhone. I mean, this is what irks me, as I have a job right now, and I really wish I bought. I've got the phones and the equipment and the nice graphics card. I just want to make my own movies.
What Unreal needs is to go the direction that DaVinci Resolve did, and bring in all these facets so that you can do everything under the same roof.
Right, under the roof. Well,
they need a good modeler and they need a good animator.
Animation tool. Well, that's what I'm saying. But that's why I don't know, because I haven't done this yet, but I know it's quite doable. The Blender pipeline to Unreal is pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
And I don't think, because so it's interesting. They're both free, but for two different reasons. Blender, open source, anyone can write code for it. And it started as like, Animation Master was kind of cheap and or was free, and it was clunky. But now it's at the level of a sophisticated software, 3D software program. And it's always going to be free because nobody owns it. It's owned by the people who, I don't think there is any owner, right? Isn't it just sort of free software that people contribute to? And the people are making money off it. They write a plugin, they write a water, a water simulator or a hair simulator or a cloth simulator. And it's $25-$50. But they know if they send 10,000 of it, they're going to do well.
Yeah.
And they don't have to have a whole company about it. Literally, it's guys writing code in their garage or their.
It's still the Wild West.
It is, and that's, again, the only regret I have is I'm not 25 now, where I would just be like, I mean, I would live in my parents' basement and I would spend all my newspaper route money on my fancy graphics card.
Dude, there's no newspaper routes anymore.
I know. Well, whatever it is.
You're living in the 70s.
I'd have my OnlyFans.
Your only fan.
My only fan. Well, let's talk about that. Okay, so Instagram is full of cute women, dancing appropriately in like bikinis or flashing, whatever they do now.
And they're all ads.
They're all ads for their OnlyFans.
Yeah.
But it's just every woman under 30, like there's no job, so they're all just taking off their clothes and dancing around to make. I assume some of them must be making good money, or else why would they all be doing it? Or is it just because it's easy? And even they make. I know. I kind of want to that would be an interesting interview documentary. Well, yeah, Well, it's interesting because it's attracting women, but are they making a living at it? What are they? What happens if they decide to go into the corporate world and someone goes, "Hey, I've seen your only." I mean, does it ruin their career? I mean, I know I have friends because I grew up in LA and lived in Van Nuys who were in the adult film industry. Sure. I know 2 or 3 female performers who've aged out or just got married and had kids, but it ruined their chances of getting any upper level corporate jobs.
Or even lower level corporate jobs.
Well, yeah, because people recognize them, and and I was like, but that doesn't affect your ability to be an assistant or whatever. They go, yeah, but it looks bad.
The world hasn't changed as much as we think it has.
Yeah, they're still very, especially in corporate.
Yeah.
I also think corporations probably think, oh, this is going to open us up to sexual harassment lawsuits because some guy goes, I saw your porn when you were in your 20s, and now you work here. Of course, you're going to want to, you're going to be easy and whatever. And then there's lawsuits. So I can see lawyers going, well, we don't want to touch that.
Yeah.
So all they can do is either low-level jobs where they're anonymous, work at home things, and or they become a YouTube person and they talk about YouTube personality and talk about the porn business, which is an interesting business. I mean, despite the obvious, like it's naked people having sex, but the business of it is fascinating to me, or at least it was. Now it's kind of gone. I mean, anyone with a phone it can do OnlyFans or whatever.
Well, hopefully not anyone.
Well, you'd be surprised.
I don't.
The
want
foot
to
things is the one. That's what I joke about. It. Any gal I know who's not making money right now, just do an OnlyFans for your feet. There's a market
only
for
feet.
it. Only feet. There's your $1 million idea.
There's
Only
$1 million idea to start that website.
Foot fetishist wonderland. That should be a great parody ad. Only
Wow.
feet. Only all feet all
Hilarious.
the time. And you only pay for it by the foot.
The
Hey.
bearded footos.
The feared widows. Well, let's see. We've covered two topics I'm fond of: UFOs and scantily clad women. I'm going to keep it safe. We talked about effects companies. God, we've killed an hour pretty fast here.
Pretty fast.
We're good. Oh, we need to. Okay.
When you're watching this episode, I believe Kirk is going to be in the midst of doing some appearances.
Oh, yes. I will be in Hannibal, Missouri, actually in the middle of October. So it'll pass.
So you'll be giving your Hannibal lecture.
Ladies and gentlemen, the comedy styles of Mr. Darren Document. You can hear him every week here on the Weird and Beardos. Yes. I don't know if they're I might be because the show I've been directing episodes on, Max and Midnights, is launching end of October.
Right.
I might be at Lightbox, which will be in November here in LA. It's the artist.
It's the Adobe convention.
It's not Adobe. They sponsor it, but they don't. It's not their convention. It's actually a private. It's a guy.
Yeah, but they sponsor it.
They do sponsor it.
So you have a presence bigger than your foot.
Procreate sponsors it. Adobe sponsors it. I don't know. I think probably there's another couple, but Adobe is the big sponsor. But if you're an artist or an animator or at all,
or if you're an AI,
you definitely want to show up. I'm sure there's going to be AI panels, and
of course.
I know. I mean, we've talked about AI a lot on our show here, and how it's affecting literally our lives. I mean, your life and my life, more your life right now. And
we put the AI in pain.
It's well, here's the thing, and there's been funny memes about it. It's like, I wanted computers to help do my taxes and clean my house, not take away art.
Yeah,
not do my paintings for me.
Yeah, it's making it easier for us to do chores and not have to worry about doing art anymore.
Right. Yes, but it hasn't. Here's the thing. I was talking about a programmer who knows about AI, and they say the problem with AI. So why isn't it doing my taxes? Why do I pay $5,000 a year to do an accountant when it's literally here's the law, here's the money? Like, why can't it? And he goes, because this is the big secret about AI, and I've seen a couple YouTube videos about it. It makes huge mistakes. In fact, he said ChatGPT can't spell strawberry.
Right.
I'm like, what? So when it comes to math and like things like taxes and the law, because I thought, well, those are cut and dried. Here's the law. At least do the grunt work that a paralegal or something would do. They go, no, it makes shit up.
No, it's interesting. My friend Mojo explained this to me the other day. And he said that one of the things that Adobe or Apple has included in their AI model is that the first command that it is sent is to, now don't make anything up now.
Right.
And don't lie.
Well, and so because...
and you have to tell it that.
Right. The original thing was, please the master, give an answer, and then the reward is whatever. I don't know if it gets a reward system, but so it would give an answer, but it didn't care if it was wrong because it wasn't told. That's bad. Yeah. So that's why there's not accounting and tax programs yet.
Because those are important.
Well, that's where I'm going to. Art, a mistake in art isn't a thing. If you ask it to do a sexy woman and she has 6 fingers or nostrils on the right side of her head, nobody gets fired. Nobody goes to jail.
That goes to the Only Fingers account.
Exactly. Only Fingers. Ooh. Get ready, boys. I did my nails.
Cthulhu hands.
But Yes, that's exactly why art. Because people are like, why is it picking on art? Because you can't. Art embraces mistakes, and
Yeah.
sometimes the AI, when it does something, you're like, oh, that's a cool idea. I
Yeah.
mean, it's a little wrong, but let's do it again. Don't do the third nostril or whatever it does. Um, so yeah, so that's why artists are kind of screwed right now,
Yeah.
and people who go, why can't it do things like taxes and accounting and the kind of dull grunt work that we
Because
all
defined things
right,
take accuracy,
right,
and art
exactly.
never has.
No, it doesn't. Yeah, I mean, no one said to
And neither did
Monet.
Art Bell.
No one said to Monet, that doesn't look like a water lily. What are you,
Well,
blind? And the answer
I
was yes.
just saw a water lily. That's not a water lily, man.
That doesn't look like a water lily.
What are you trying
Yes,
to push on us?
yeah. Um, Speaking of AI, the other interesting thing, which I love. I mean, YouTube for me is the library now. I just go
Sure.
all over. I cover every subject that even things like how to build your own garden wall. Like it's great. I love YouTube because I love the library as a kid, and now I don't have to leave my bed. I can just click around or my laptop. Was Where was I going? I got my own this ADHD. It's a curse and a blessing. Um, Oh, robots. The Tesla robot and the competing companies that are all
Right.
aiming for a less than $20,000 home humanoid robot. It's not Wall-E. It's a mannequin that, and I've seen videos now where so they're putting the ChatGPT AI that's like in the phones now, where it's a person conversing with you, the her program, where, well,
Yeah.
hey, Darren, what would you like me to do? Hey, could you clean the kitchen? Certainly. And it's Jarvis, it's a C3PO. But they're saying they're going to be under 20 grand in the next couple of years. They will be a thing you would buy, somewhere between a nice stove oven combination and a car. It's like, well, we don't. The thing is, I don't know how you see them doing home chores, like they're wiping down the countertops and they're
Hmm.
they're working them up. I don't know. I sound like Andy Rooney. How accurate is it going to be for you kids? Andy Rooney, for all the people under 30, it's Andy Rooney. I wonder why these robots. Did you ever wonder?
Do you ever wonder why AI is so inaccurate?
Exactly. Um, I was thinking the other day, if I asked my robot, who I've named James, that'd be funny to do an Andy Rooney of the future. Um, uh, Look at these ideas we just give to our listeners for free. Someone's going to take that and make a movie or a
It's
TV series.
AI and D-Rundy.
Oh, ladies and gentlemen, Jared, this is why we're friends.
And that's why we bring it together here at the end. And, wow.
AI and D. Rooney. Anyway, I'm curious to see how effective those things are. Because
Well,
if it,
we're still in the beginning birth pangs of it, so it's going to be difficult for a lot of people until it sorts itself out.
we live in interesting times. I for one am optimistic. You're a cynic. I'm an optimist because I'm stupid. I'm like, what?
No, you're the also Beardo.
It's, um, well, I learned early on after battling depression that the only thing I can control is my attitude, and I'm like, I want to be an optimist. I sleep better because I could definitely turn on the I'm going to go through all the bad scenarios, and then you
Yeah.
just go insane. I mean, and I've dated people like that. Who's like, but what if, but what if? And it's tearing them apart. No, I'm serious. I think it's an affliction,
Yeah.
a neuroses. I get it, but again, the only thing you can ultimately control is your thinking. Why not be an optimist? And that's what I liked about Star Trek. It was an optimistic view of the future,
Yeah.
and
Sure.
so was Star Wars. Not.
Star Wars was not.
No, the Empire was winning.
I'm Luke Skywalker. I'm here to rescue you.
You're a little short for a stormtrooper, aren't you?
Yeah, well, go to hell. These princesses with their requirements.
Shut up and show me your boobies.
Oh my goodness.
They should have said
On
that.
that note,
That's the name of our next
the
podcast.
weirded boobies are signing off this weekend.
Thanks for listening. We're going to do a commercial for this someday. But I think we should do it, the both of us. I mean, I'm happy to promote it, but I think
A
you and I should
crummy
be,
commercial?
well, an ad to get people to like go, oh, hey, I want to see these two idiots.
All you got to do is just
I know.
go on Instagram and say, hey,
I did.
there's this little podcast we're doing.
I'm going to, but then they don't know what it is until they watch it, and then they're like, oh.
But they trust you because
Well,
they like Muppets.
they do. I'll have a Muppet too with me. Hey, Handy. I know. Hey,
Handy is not a Muppet.
tell our friends what I'm working on these days. Well, he's working on a really interesting show. I'm going to cover your mouth so you can move it better. There you go. He's working on this great new thing. It's a podcast. Yep, all the kids are doing it. It's with this fellow guy. He's really funny and he's smart and he's a great artist. His name is Darren Dockerman with one R. Check it out. Thanks, Andy. You're welcome.
Andy. Wow.
There you go.
He kind of looks
that
like,
on the Instagram.
He looks just like Waldo.
Which Waldo? Where's Waldo? Or
No, the digital Waldo.
Oh, thank you.
As seen in Muppets 3D.
Yes. That was the first thing I worked on with Jim.
Hi.
All right. Thanks for listening.
Thanks for joining us.
Yeah.
And join us next week.
We're not going
to have a guest either. So it's just going to be us yammering.
Maybe I could wrangle somebody. See.
Wrangle?
Do some wrangling.
The wrangling must stop.
I was an E-Rock wrangler. I can wrangle guests.
Wow.
But don't bet on it.
He's the old Ewok wrangler going down the lane.
Yeah. Yum. Shut up with your yum.
Shut up the yum.
Don't make me get the AT-AT.
Oh,
Chicken Walker. What is it officially called? I love these kind of dribble off endings.
The all-terrain scout transport is the Chicken Walker. ATST.
ATST, that's right. No, we just call it the Chicken Walker, and then
the
toy company or George gives it a name later.
Kenner has a complete judgment of naming these things because they have to catalog them and
Walrus face.
Put them in the Sears catalog.
Oh my God, Sears! All right, that's a sad note to end on Sears.
Thanks, everybody. We'll see you next time on the Weirded Beardos.
Ask for it by name.
The Weirded Beardos are Kirk Thatcher and Darren Dockerman. Email them at theweirdedbeardos@gmail.com.